There comes a moment in every man's life when he must confront the truth that his mastery of the world is dictated not by the wealth that slips through his fingers, nor by the fleeting applause of peers, but by the sovereignty he commands over his own mind. You may be laboring tirelessly, chasing dollars as if they were leaves caught in a storm, yet never grasping the trunk from which they grow. The top 1% do not merely earn money, they hold dominion over it because they first held dominion over themselves. And mastery over oneself begins with the mastery of emotion. Listen carefully. If you allow every disappointment, every insult, every minor frustration to ignite a flame within you, you forfeit control over your own destiny. Emotions, while natural, are often the tyrants of the weak-minded. They cloud judgment, distort perception, and rob even the brightest intellects of their most valuable asset, the power to choose a deliberate course of action. Emotional reactivity is a silent assassin of wealth. It drives men to rash investments, hasty purchases, and uncalculated risks. It whispers permission for regret and shame. But the individual who cultivates detachment, the calm observer of life's provocations, stands unshaken in the face of chaos, making decisions that compound into unassailable fortune. Understand this principle. Money, like water, obeys the path of least resistance. If your mind is turbulent, if your thoughts are scattered and your decisions are reactions rather than deliberate strategies, your money will flow to those who are prepared, disciplined, and composed. Wealth accumulates first in the mind and then manifests in reality. The 1% understand this implicitly. They are architects of their own inner world, and from this foundation they build empires. The first law of financial mastery, therefore, is the law of mental neutrality. You must learn to observe without attachment, to assess without passion, and to act with precise calculation. Let no insult from the market, no panic from the crowd, no fleeting desire from your impulses dictate your actions. The mind that is calm is a mind that sees opportunity where the frantic see risk. It is the mind that seizes control over circumstance, rather than being seized by circumstance. This principle is not mystical, it is measurable, predictable, and repeatable. Emotional detachment is the prerequisite for accurate thinking, and accurate thinking is the prerequisite for wealth. Now consider the principle of thought first. Every financial decision begins not in your bank account, not in the ledger, but in your imagination. The habits of thought precede the habits of action. If you imagine scarcity, you will act with hesitation and caution, and your wealth will reflect your mental limitations. If you imagine abundance guided by logic and foresight, you will act with clarity and purpose, and your bank account will mirror your mental architecture. The top 1% visualize the outcome first, then reverse engineer every step with methodical precision. They understand that desire alone is worthless without disciplined application and emotional control. Let us examine the power of calmness, which is more than the absence of agitation. Calmness is the active force of restraint, the ability to engage every situation with patience and discernment. When a financial storm arises, stock markets crashing, investments floundering, opportunities appearing chaotic, the calm mind sees patterns invisible to the panicked eye. It distinguishes between temporary turbulence and permanent threat. It knows that measured action will always outperform impulsive reaction. Emotional detachment allows you to treat setbacks as data, not judgment, to respond with strategy, not sentiment. The wealthy are patient. They wait for the precise moment to strike, and when they do, it is decisive, calculated, and irrevocable. Self-discipline is the companion of calmness. Consider it the armor that protects your mind from external influence. The man without discipline is a marionette of circumstance, flailing with every wind of opinion, every wave of temptation, every gust of desire. He spends as he pleases, invests as the crowd dictates, and follows every trend as if his fortune depends on collective impulse. Discipline, however, fortifies your ability to act according to principle, to follow plans meticulously, and to resist the seduction of immediate gratification. True discipline is invisible yet unmistakable in its effects. It governs spending, enforces savings, ensures that every decision aligns with a greater vision of prosperity. Autosuggestion is another tool wielded by the financially elite. The mind absorbs repeated affirmations as truth. The individual who constantly tells himself, I am capable, I am discerning, I am a master of my resources, programs his subconscious to act in alignment with that reality. Conversely, doubt and fear propagate weakness, indecision, and financial ruin. The top 1% employ autosuggestion, not as a casual exercise, but as a daily regimen, shaping not only thought, but the very chemical reality of their brain. Thoughts become habits. Habits become actions. Actions become wealth. The principle of personal initiative is inseparable from detachment and discipline. You cannot wait for the world to hand opportunity to you, nor can you allow circumstance to dictate the timing of your triumphs. Initiative requires courage, the courage to act decisively while maintaining internal equilibrium, the courage to remain unshaken by rejection or temporary failure. It is the individual who takes control, who moves first while others hesitate, who claims the spoils of life because he acts from a center of mastery, not panic. Wealth is not merely accumulated by labor, it is accumulated by judgment, by insight, by the unwavering clarity of purpose that only detachment and discipline can provide. Observe the behavior of the affluent. They measure every expense against long-term gain, every risk against strategic advantage, every desire against principle. They do not purchase to impress, they invest to endure. They do not act out of impulse, they act out of vision. And what vision is this? The vision of a life under their own control, free from the tyranny of emotion, guided by precise and rational thought, and fueled by the relentless pursuit of excellence. It is crucial, however, to recognize that detachment does not signify apathy. To be emotionally detached is not to ignore the world, but to observe it with the precision of a surgeon. It is to acknowledge the rise and fall of markets, the ebb and flow of opportunity, and the behaviors of others without allowing these external forces to dictate your inner equilibrium. The wealthy understand this distinction. They are not cold. They are calculating. They are not indifferent. They are deliberate. And in this deliberate state, they act with foresight, turning situations that would ruin the ill-prepared into advantages that compound their power and influence. Consider the role of habit in wealth creation. Repeated actions form character, and character forms destiny. When you combine emotional detachment with disciplined routines, tracking expenses meticulously, reviewing investments with unwavering consistency, dedicating hours to research, reflection, and planning, you create an invincible framework upon which wealth is built. The poor, the emotionally reactive, the undisciplined, waste energy on distractions, on petty conflicts, and on impulses that yield nothing but regret. The top 1%, by contrast, employ energy as a scalpel, cutting away the trivial and the unnecessary, channeling every ounce of thought and effort into measurable results. Now, let us examine the principle of response versus reaction. A reaction is immediate, uncontrolled, and typically guided by emotion. A response is measured, deliberate, and guided by intellect. Every successful financial decision depends upon your ability to respond rather than react. When confronted with a financial setback, an unexpected expense, a market downturn, a failed venture, the reactive mind panics, cuts losses prematurely, or doubles down irrationally. The responsive mind pauses, evaluates, and recalibrates. It considers context, precedent, and principle before committing to action. If you cultivate this ability, you will find that fortune begins to favor your decisions with a consistency that borders on inevitability. The power of accurate thinking cannot be overstated. To accumulate wealth like the top 1%, you must see things as they are, not as your fears, desires, or biases wish them to be. Emotional detachment allows for this clarity. It removes the lens of sentimentality, of ego, and of immediate gratification. It allows you to judge people, investments, and opportunities objectively. You will recognize the difference between a sound decision and a tempting illusion. You will learn to say no to the opportunities that promise excitement but deliver nothing, and yes to the opportunities that promise growth and enduring value. Discipline and detachment also govern spending, the most visible expression of one's mastery over money. Every purchase you make is a vote for the life you intend to live. The top 1% do not waste resources on fleeting pleasures or the approval of others, Their money is a tool, not a toy. It is a vehicle for freedom, for influence, for security, and for the creation of further wealth. They invest with strategy, save with rigor, and spend with intention. Each dollar is accounted for, each decision weighed against its long-term impact. And because they are emotionally detached, they do not fear missing out on trends, do not envy the ostentation of the unwise, and do not allow temporary satisfaction to sabotage their long-term plans. Let us now address the principle of continuous learning. Knowledge is the currency of the mind, and the wealthy accumulate it voraciously. They understand that markets evolve, that economies fluctuate, that industries rise and fall. They study, analyze, and anticipate. Emotional detachment allows them to confront truths that others avoid losses, failures, mistakes without despair. They absorb these lessons, refine strategies, and emerge stronger, more informed, more prepared. The man who fears failure or clings to pride is enslaved by emotion. The man who detaches, who observes with clarity, who applies knowledge relentlessly, masters both his mind and his money. Another essential tool of the financially elite is the cultivation of patience. Wealth is seldom a product of haste. Impatience breeds impulsivity, and impulsivity breeds loss. The top 1% recognize that compounding, whether in finance, influence, or reputation, requires time. Emotional detachment ensures that impatience does not cloud judgment. It allows the investor to hold steady when others sell, to remain resolute when trends appear unfavorable, and to capitalize when opportunity finally aligns with preparation. Every moment of restraint, every decision governed by patience rather than impulse, adds to the power and permanence of accumulated wealth. The discipline of visualization and precise goal setting is equally critical. The mind must hold a clear picture of what you intend to create. If your mental image is vague, your actions will be erratic, and your results will reflect confusion. The top 1% define their financial targets with precision, not merely, I want to be rich, but I will achieve a net worth of X by date Y through these specific channels. Then, every thought, every decision, every action is aligned with that vision. Autosuggestion reinforces this alignment, embedding the goal deep within the subconscious, where it compels behavior and sustains effort, even in moments of doubt or difficulty. Remember also the importance of controlling desire. Desire, unchecked, is the adversary of reason. Emotional detachment enables you to distinguish between desires that serve your long-term objectives and those that distract. A desire for immediate gratification, for social approval, or for conspicuous consumption undermines wealth creation. Desire that is guided by principled ambition for growth, commitment to opportunity, pursuit of excellence becomes a force multiplier. The top 1% harness desire. They never surrender to it. They direct it, refine it, and convert it into purposeful action. Finally, understand that money is an extension of personal energy. Every dollar earned is a reflection of the decisions, habits, and mental clarity that produced it. Every dollar spent is a choice to allocate that energy toward a result. By mastering your emotions, by disciplining your mind, by acting from a place of calculated calm, you ensure that your money compounds as efficiently as your thoughts. The top 1% achieve wealth not through luck, not through inheritance, but through relentless mastery of the mind and consistent, deliberate action. Now, let us turn our attention to the art of strategic investment, which is not merely the act of placing money into ventures, but the deliberate orchestration of resources to yield compounding growth. Here again, emotional detachment is the cornerstone. The reactive investor chases the market, inflamed by fear and greed, buying at peaks and selling at valleys, enslaved to the fluctuations of fortune. The detached investor, by contrast, sees the market as a servant, not a master. He studies trends, understands cycles, anticipates change, and strikes with deliberate precision. He does not succumb to panic during downturns, nor does he boast during upswings. His composure allows him to make decisions that are rational, not impulsive, and to reap rewards that compound silently over time. Wealth is never an accident. It is the product of foresight and consistency. Consider also the principle of diversification, a concept misunderstood by many. The emotionally reactive mind seeks excitement in high-risk gambles, believing that fortune will be secured by a single stroke of luck. The disciplined mind spreads its resources across avenues that balance risk and reward, ensuring stability while maintaining the potential for exponential growth. The 1% understand that patience, strategy, and breadth are allies, emotional impulses are enemies. They avoid the siren call of quick wealth, knowing that the truly powerful accumulate slowly, deliberately, and inevitably. Networking and influence are equally essential in the architecture of financial mastery. Emotional detachment grants you clarity in human relations, allowing you to discern character, to avoid manipulation, and to cultivate alliances with those who reflect and reinforce your vision. The top 1% do not squander energy on trivial relationships or petty rivalries. They align themselves with individuals of integrity, competence, and ambition. Every association is a calculated investment. Every conversation a potential leverage point. Every alliance a multiplier of opportunity. Your capacity to remain calm and objective underlies your ability to navigate these interactions with precision, to negotiate without emotional compromise, and to extract maximum value from every connection. The management of time, that most finite of resources, is another hallmark of the elite. Time, like money, is governed by the principles of discipline and detachment. The distracted mind fritters hours on unproductive pursuits, caught in the whirlwind of emotion and impulse. The disciplined mind allocates every moment with intent, prioritizing high-value activities, delegating or eliminating the trivial, and protecting its mental space from unnecessary interference. Wealth grows not only from smart decisions, but from the effective deployment of time in the service of those decisions. The top 1% understand that mastery over time amplifies every other principle, from investment strategy to personal development. Now, consider the inevitable adversities that challenge every journey toward financial mastery. Economic recessions, unexpected expenses, failed ventures, these are not signs of weakness, but tests of internal fortitude. Emotional detachment allows you to perceive these events as temporary, not defining, as challenges to be addressed, not catastrophes to be feared. Each setback, approached with calm and strategic thought, becomes a lesson that strengthens judgment, sharpens foresight, and deepens resilience. The 1% view obstacles not as enemies, but as instruments of refinement, and they respond with solutions rather than panic. The cultivation of a long-term vision is inseparable from these practices. Wealth without vision is aimless accumulation. It is the frantic gathering of resources without direction, vulnerable to loss and squandered potential. Emotional detachment ensures that your vision is guided by reason, not sentiment, that your goals remain clear even amidst chaos, and that your actions are aligned with enduring outcomes rather than transient desires. The elite plan decades in advance, understanding that fortune is the reward for consistent, principled action sustained over time. We now approach the principle of ethical leverage, the understanding that influence, trust, and reputation are among the most potent forms of capital. Emotional mastery allows you to operate with integrity, to negotiate firmly yet fairly, and to cultivate a reputation that attracts opportunity. The 1% rarely exploit or manipulate because their wealth is secured by sustained relationships and earned credibility. Acting with integrity requires detachment from base temptations, from envy, from fear of short-term loss, and from the desire to gratify ego. The detached mind prioritizes enduring value over fleeting gain, and in doing so, ensures that wealth is not only accumulated but preserved and magnified across time. Finally, recognize that the greatest asset you possess is your mind itself. Money, investments, influence, and networks are extensions of the disciplined intellect. If your mind is turbulent, your money will be turbulent. If your mind is weak, your wealth will be fragile. If your mind is undisciplined, your financial empire will crumble. Mastery of emotion, thought, and action is the prerequisite for mastery of money. Emotional detachment allows you to think clearly, to act decisively, to innovate boldly, and to create value that multiplies itself. Discipline ensures that your actions are consistent and aligned with your highest vision. Accurate thinking allows you to see opportunity and risk with clarity, and auto-suggestion programs your mind to maintain focus and confidence, even under pressure. Together, these principles transform potential into reality, aspiration into measurable success, and fleeting fortune into lasting abundance. Preservation of wealth, once it is attained, is an art often overlooked by those intoxicated by acquisition. The emotionally reactive mind spends without foresight, invests without protection, and loses without comprehension. The detached and disciplined mind, by contrast, builds not only for the present but for the future, recognizing that every asset carries both opportunity and vulnerability. Insurance, diversification, legal structures, and strategic planning are not merely tools, they are instruments of control over uncertainty. The wealthy do not gamble with chance. They structure every decision to withstand volatility, to endure the unforeseen, and to compound advantage over decades. Every decision is framed not in the language of desire or fear, but in the language of calculated, unemotional foresight. Consider, for example, the use of legal and tax structures. The elite understand that money is an extension of personal energy, and that mismanagement in these domains is an unnecessary drain. Through corporations, trusts, partnerships, and other vehicles, they optimize efficiency, shield assets, and create channels that amplify rather than diminish the value of their resources. Emotional detachment allows them to navigate these complex systems without resentment or confusion, to see rules and regulations not as obstacles but as levers, and to act with precision where others flounder. In every domain, they transform apparent limitations into mechanisms of advantage, proving once again that calm, disciplined thought turns adversity into opportunity. Legacy creation is the apex of financial mastery. Wealth, when unanchored to purpose, is transient. The top 1% think not only in terms of accumulation, but in terms of influence across generations. They structure estates, endowments, and philanthropic initiatives that preserve capital, instill values, and expand impact. Emotional detachment is essential here as well. To act for the long term requires the ability to defer gratification, to resist ego-driven impulses, and to maintain clarity of purpose amidst pressures of inheritance, family dynamics, and societal expectation. The detached mind secures wealth not for vanity, but for effect, to cultivate opportunity, sustain vision, and empower those who will follow. Philanthropy, contrary to the misconceptions of the uninitiated, is not mere charity, it is strategic leverage. The elite deploy resources toward causes that reinforce influence, create goodwill, and extend their capacity to shape outcomes aligned with their vision. Emotional detachment ensures that these decisions are guided by principle rather than sentimentality. It allows the wealthy to act boldly, generously, and with discernment, rather than reacting to guilt, public opinion, or fleeting emotion. The mind trained in calm analysis turns giving into a multiplier of both moral and financial capital, strengthening networks, reputation, and long-term opportunity. Even more profoundly, the psychological frameworks cultivated by the top 1% create immunity to the corrosive effects of success itself. Wealth often magnifies ego, entitlement, and anxiety, but emotional mastery protects against these hazards. The detached individual does not conflate net worth with self-worth. He does not anchor happiness to material gain, nor allow fear to dictate decisions. He maintains perspective, measures risk dispassionately, and retains the humility necessary to continue learning, adapting, and expanding influence. In this state, fortune is no longer a force that governs him. It is a servant of disciplined intention. The use of leverage, both financial and personal, is also guided by detachment. Leverage amplifies impact, but without discipline and calm, it magnifies error. The top 1% employ borrowed capital, partnerships, and networks strategically, never recklessly, always with contingency and calculation. Emotional detachment allows them to weigh each opportunity against risk, to act decisively when conditions are favorable, and to withdraw when conditions threaten disproportionate exposure. In this way, leverage becomes a tool of power, not a source of vulnerability, and wealth grows exponentially without unnecessary hazard. Investment in knowledge, skill, and intuition is the final principle that differentiates the elite. They understand that money is never the ultimate measure of power. It is the reflection of intellect applied over time. Emotional detachment allows for honest self-assessment, acceptance of shortcomings, and deliberate pursuit of mastery. Continuous learning about markets, human behavior, technology, and global trends becomes a daily discipline. Each insight gained compounds, informing strategy, reducing error, and creating advantage. When combined with the mastery of emotion, thought, and action, this knowledge becomes the most enduring asset of all, sustaining both wealth and influence across decades. And so, let this truth resonate within you. Mastery over money begins with mastery over yourself. Emotional detachment is not an abstract ideal. It is a practical, actionable tool that governs every aspect of decision making. Discipline is not restriction. It is the scaffolding of freedom. Thoughtful action is not hesitation. It is the deliberate orchestration of resources to create enduring advantage. The top 1% do not attain wealth by accident, by luck, or by chance. They earn it through a relentless commitment to clarity, principle, and self-command. The path before you is clear. Observe your emotions, measure your actions, align your intentions with enduring goals, and allow the disciplined mind to orchestrate every decision. Invest with foresight, save with purpose, leverage with wisdom, and give with discernment. Build habits that reinforce control, networks that amplify opportunity, and routines that fortify mental resilience. In doing so, you transform money from a fleeting possession into a tool of power, influence, and lasting prosperity. And now, as you stand on the threshold of your own potential, understand this: the world will not wait for you to master yourself. Fortune, opportunity, and influence flow to those who act with clarity, precision, and resolve. Every day you hesitate, every day you allow fear, impulse, or indecision to govern your actions, you relinquish control over your destiny. The top 1% do not wait. They act deliberately, informed by thought, guided by principle, and fortified by detachment. Your mind is the crucible of wealth. If it is turbulent, scattered, and reactive, your efforts will be wasted and your resources dissipated. If it is disciplined, focused, and calm, your actions become instruments of creation and your money becomes a reflection of your mastery. Command your thoughts, subdue your impulses, respond with strategy where others react with chaos. Harness patience, clarity, and foresight as your allies, and you will discover that the path to extraordinary wealth is not paved with luck, it is paved with disciplined thought, deliberate action, and unwavering self-control. Remember always that emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of command. You may feel fear, doubt, or desire, but you do not surrender to them. You acknowledge them, measure them, and act despite them. Discipline is not restriction, but liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of fleeting emotion, allowing your choices to reflect vision rather than impulse. Accurate thinking, deliberate planning, and unwavering focus become the instruments through which your will is translated into tangible achievement. Let this be your standard. Every financial decision, every investment of energy, every allocation of time must serve the vision of your highest potential. Let no distraction, no indulgence, no external pressure divert you from this course. Let your wealth grow not in bursts of reckless excitement, but in the quiet accumulation of consistent, principled, and rational action. Let your network, your influence, and your reputation be extensions of your disciplined mind, cultivated with integrity, foresight, and detachment. And let every dollar you earn, every opportunity you seize, every lesson you internalize, compound into an unstoppable trajectory toward freedom, power, and enduring prosperity. The 1% do not achieve greatness because they are extraordinary. They achieve greatness because they master what ordinary men ignore: their own minds. They control emotion, they command thought, and they act decisively where others hesitate. Wealth, influence, and legacy are byproducts of this mastery. And so it is with you. The tools, the principles, the capacity for extraordinary achievement all reside within your own mind. All that is required is resolve, discipline, and the unwavering determination to act in alignment with these truths. Now, rise. Observe your impulses, measure your desires, discipline your habits, direct your thoughts with precision, allocate your resources with foresight, act with strategy, patience, and detachment. Transform fear into calculation, impulse into purpose, chaos into order. In doing so, you will not only handle your money like the top 1%, you will handle your life, your destiny, and your mind with the authority and clarity that defines true mastery. The path is demanding, the discipline relentless, the vigilance constant, but the reward is absolute. Freedom, power, and the unshakable certainty that your life is under your command. Fortune does not follow the reckless. It bows to the prepared. It yields to the disciplined. It responds to the mind that has been trained, fortified, and liberated through self-mastery. Take control, command your mind, dominate your decisions. Let emotional detachment, mental discipline, and principled action become the hallmarks of your existence. The wealth you seek, the freedom you crave, and the influence you desire are already within reach. They await only your mastery. Rise, act, and claim what is your right. The top 1% do not wait, and neither must you. And now hear this with unyielding clarity. All the knowledge, all the strategies, all the principles of detachment, discipline, and deliberate action converge at a single, undeniable truth. Your fortune is the direct reflection of your mastery over yourself. The market, the economy, your colleagues, even your competitors, these are not the arbiters of your destiny. They are but instruments responding to the energy, the precision, and the foresight that you bring to bear. The top 1% do not achieve supremacy through luck. They achieve it because they refuse to be governed by fear, they refuse to be manipulated by desire, they refuse to surrender to chaos. And neither should you. Every decision you make today, every impulse you observe and restrain, every calculated action you take, compounds into power that is unstoppable. You have the ability to turn adversity into advantage, scarcity into opportunity, and challenge into triumph. Emotional turbulence is not your enemy, it is your proving ground. Discipline is not confinement, it is liberation. Accurate thought is not limitation, it is empowerment. When you combine these forces, when you act with precision, vision, and relentless resolve, nothing can stand in your way. Visualize the life you intend to lead. See it with unflinching clarity. See wealth, influence, freedom, and impact not as distant aspirations, but as inevitable outcomes of the mind that has been trained, fortified, and liberated. Every dollar you earn, every choice you make, every action you take becomes a step along a path you have designed. You will not stumble, you will not falter. You will command your life with the authority of one who has disciplined mind and indomitable will. And remember this, the world will test you relentlessly. It will attempt to provoke fear, temptation, and doubt. It will present setbacks disguised as failures, challenges disguised as impossibilities. The detached mind sees through these illusions. The disciplined mind acts decisively, calculating risk with clarity, and seizes opportunity when others are paralyzed by panic. You are no longer a passenger in your own life. You are the captain, the strategist, the architect of your destiny. Rise now and commit. Commit to thought mastery. Commit to emotional detachment. Commit to disciplined action. Let every choice reflect clarity. Let every step embody principle. And let every decision compound into unassailable advantage. The top 1% did not wait for permission, nor for luck, nor for circumstance to align. They seized control, they commanded their minds, they mastered their impulses, and they built wealth, influence, and legacy that endure beyond fleeting time. Now, it is your turn. Take control, dominate your decisions, convert fear into calculation, impulse into strategy, and vision into reality. Let wealth follow mastery. Let freedom follow discipline. Let influence follow clarity. Your life is your capital. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Your actions are the currency that will compound into the power, the freedom, and the success that few ever attain. Do not delay, do not falter. Command yourself, and the world will yield to your will. Let the fire of mastery ignite within you. Let precision, courage, and foresight guide every move. Stand unshaken, act decisively, and rise into the echelon of those who are not merely wealthy, but unstoppable, unbreakable, and eternally sovereign over their own destiny. This is your moment. This is your declaration. The top 1% act with clarity, courage, and mastery, and now so shall you.